What's up, Internet? You're tuned in episode 30 of the FlipScreen Games Podcast, a weekly video game podcast where two best buds from different nations come together to discuss the wide world of video games. I'm your host, Peter Messi, joined as always by my very good friend and co-host, Mr. Stephen Radford.
Hello, hello.
Hello, Steve. Welcome back to another week here on this there show where you have a confession to make. You spoke too soon.
I was wrong. I was so wrong about Elden Ring.
Clip that out for me, somebody, real quick. I was wrong, and we just leave it. We don't need to have the second part. It's more modular that way.
Yeah, I we'll get into it, but I've kind of done a complete 180 on where I was last week. I've got it now. I got it. I did what I said I was going to do, and I get it now.
So let me ask, Steve, did you get good? Are you a pro gamer now?
No, I'm terrible at this game. I died so much. My dad was watching us on stream, and he was just like, do you just spend most of your time dead? And I was like...
It's like, Dad, if it's anybody's fault, it's yours, right? Like, think about it. I think it's just like how, like, if you like suck at a sport or something like that, right? Like, it's like, oh, like, you should have been out tossing the ball with Dad or whatever. You could have been good at sports. Like, your dad...
Who's, like, so you're saying, like, pro footballers or basketball players, they just owe all of their skills to their parents, are we saying?
I wouldn't say that they owe their skills, but I think nurturing the skills at an early age is important, It's
like a musician, like musical savants and stuff.
Sure, yeah. I think any prodigy.
But identify it and
nurture it, right? And not
hone it in. Yeah.
Not push, not force, but hone the skill and the passion, right? And I feel like that's maybe where you missed out, right? Like, you loved games, but like your dad was like needed to be tracking your high scores and like making sure you were trying to like push a little bit harder, I don't know. Mm-hmm. All these years later, you can't play Elden Ring.
So train your kids, get those fingers working to the bone.
PSA.
Or hitting that circle button to roll around the place.
I know we have plenty of parents that listen to the show, right? A lot of our listeners have kids. So now's the time, right? Get your kids practicing. Make them play Demon Souls at an early age. By the time they're an adult, they'll be ready for the MLG life,
Isn't it like an 18 rated game?
I mean,
like rated mature. You definitely should not let your children play this game. It shits me up just playing it.
Yeah, it'll be fine. All right, fine. Make them play something that's really hard, but like a little more family friendly.
Yeah,
like Cuphead or Celeste.
Like Celeste or sure. Cuphead. Yeah,
Cuphead's like a little scary though. Maybe for a kid, depending on the age. But you know what? These kids, they got to get brave.
You're getting strawberries. Just make them get all the strawberries in Celeste.
That's so...
No, I don't believe anyone can do that.
That's so messed up. It's like, kid, if you ever want another video game, get all the strawberries first. Like, I don't wanna. I want to go outside. Anyway, welcome back to the FlipScreen Games Podcast, everybody. We've got a heck of an episode ahead of us. We're going to talk all about Elden Ring. We've got a meaty question from one of our Patreon producers, and a couple other things if we have the time. But before all that, let me just remind you that this episode of the FlipScreen Games Podcast is brought to you by our Patreon producers for the month of March. They are, of course, Christian Oliveria, Christopher Valenz, Gabriel Hasselmeyer, a.k.a. Asobi, Mary Berry, Smilky Shake, Wakahula, and Zaid Ida. Thank you all so much for your support over on patreon.com/FlipScreenGames. Y'all are the realest of the real, and we appreciate your support. Speaking of which... if you want to show your support just like those fine folks did, there's a bunch of perks and goodies you can get over there on the Patreon, including our Patreon exclusive podcast, One More Thing, where Steve and I talk about what's going on in our lives outside the world of video games and do weird things like rank candy bars for 2 hours. That was a good time. This last week was a little bit more conventional of an episode. We talked about my band's first show in New York City and kind of the weekend that I had all around that. And a bombshell announcement, folks. Steve, the British, folks over there do not have peanut butter and jelly. And this is a thing that I learned as a friend to Steve.
We don't call it jelly either. We call it jam. So.
Here, it's like a different thing. Like, jam and jelly are not the same thing. That's a whole other thing. It doesn't matter. Steve has had a peanut butter and jam, a peanut butter and jelly, whatever you want to call it. and the reviews are in. So if you want to go hear us talk all about this life-changing experience for one Stephen Radford and why Macaulay refuses to try it, go ahead over there and check out that episode. It was a good time. It was a damn good time.
I mean, I've since heard that I have from a friend that I have that he eats it with cheese as well, and I was just like, I almost threw up a little bit.
What?
Yeah,
what?
Peanut butter, cheese, and jam.
With like what kind of, like a slice of American cheese or like?
I think it's cheddar. We don't have American cheese here, but
like cheese
cheddar.
Slices, right? Like not like
yeah. Yeah, not grated, just like a cheese slice in the middle of that. You know, one side's got the peanut butter on, one side's got the jam on. In the middle's cheese. Bam.
All right, Steve. You know, I to the listeners, right? If you know anything about me, I would always tell you to never call the cops. But like that person sounds like they might be a serial killer. All right, like I
was shocked. I was shocked. Yeah.
I don't know about all that.
He's vegetarian, and he also recommended I try it with bacon. With bacon sounds really good. Peanut butter, bacon, and jam.
How would he know? He's vegetarian.
Well, you know, I don't know. I don't think it was always vegetarian, but
okay. All right.
I think it would be nice. Anyway, that's a tangent to go listen to One More Thing about.
If you like that,
talk about it over there.
You'll enjoy One More Thing. That's what that show is, but for an hour at least. So go check it out. It's a good time. We have fun making it. Folks have fun listening to it, so go give it a listen. And, you know, if you want to get all the links to all of the ways that you can show support for the show or interact, head over to flipscreen.games. That's our website, and where you can find links for our Discord channel. You can find a link to our Twitch, where we're there. We're live every Wednesday and Thursday. Steve's throwing in extra streams in the mornings now. It's all off the rails, so you're going to want to go subscribe and follow along over there so that you know when we go live every week, because we're going live all the time now. And it's only going to go up. So go check it out. Go show your support however you choose to. We appreciate that you chose to listen to this fine program. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being with us. I hope you will come and join the community and be a part of what we're building here at FlipScreen Games. So let's get to it, right? What you're playing is Elden Ring. Last week, you were about 5 hours into the game. We had a whole conversation about why it wasn't clicking for you, why Souls games historically have not clicked for us as people, as gamers. How far in are you now? When did it click for you? And why has it clicked for you? Are my questions. Having not spoken to you at all about it, only that you've told me you like it.
Yeah, you haven't.
I have no context for this, so I'm learning right with the listener.
Yeah, so Asobi hit the nail on the head really earlier. He was just like, you can tell when Steve likes a game when he just starts doing random streams about it. And that's right, because I did the same thing with Metroid Fusion, did the same thing with Shenmue. I'll just do extra streams every now and again when I'm really enjoying a game. So you can tell I really like this game. I'm 12 hours-ish into the game now. I think it's probably more like 13. I've completed the first mandatory story boss, because there's a bunch of bosses you can complete out in the world. If you saw the stream earlier in the week that I did, there was like dragons and things out in the world. There's like guys on horseback so you can take down, and they're all bosses as well, but they're all totally optional. So I did the first mandatory boss.
How do you know what's mandatory and what's not? Because the game doesn't have like a quest log or anything like that. So
every single campfire you called Point of Grace or Touch of Grace or whatever they're called has like a stream coming out of them pointing to the next point, and you've got to like connect the dots. So you go from this one, and there's like a line coming out of it on the map. You follow that line, you'll get to the next Touch of Grace. You go to the next one, and eventually you'll end up at the point where it wants you to be, and there's no line coming out of that campfire anymore. And so when you get to that point, you know that when you walk through that gate and you attack that boss, that's the boss that you're meant to attack. You'll also get a cutscene, which you don't get with any of the non-mandatory bosses. What is with your face?
So, I'm not gonna lie to you. I accidentally clicked on the Streamlabs app, and it started just making my screen freak out. So I looked back at you, and I was just like, and I don't think it showed up for the kids, but it freaked me out a little bit. So I'm sorry, I got distracted there. Please continue.
So I've completed that first mandatory boss now. And only took me about 8 tries. Like, everyone was talking about how difficult this thing was, and I thought wrongly that I'd already met the first boss in the last episode. I hadn't. It was just some random giant through some gates that I'd found. And he was fucking just ridiculous anyway. So
That's
I get
great.
to
You're
this
like,
guy.
all right, I almost got him. Oh no, I didn't even have to do this.
No, yeah, you didn't even have to do him. There was no cutscene. He's not a mandatory boss at all. He's just some random giant. But I beat him, and that sense of elation I got when I finally finished Metroid Dread, and I finally finished that final boss on Metroid Dread, I got the exact same feeling. It's that, like, yeah, I'm fucking awesome at video games feeling. Even though I'm not, I'm terrible, right? But you get that feeling that you are such a hero for taking down this boss, for like dodging his moves, for timing it correctly, for using your magic, for like sipping from your flask to regenerate your health when you get a spare second, to just stabbing him in the back. You can attack it and approach it from multiple ways, and it's just so satisfying. And magic, that I finally was able to, because I picked totally the wrong class at the beginning. We'll get onto classes, because I know you're going to start playing the game and you've got a class in mind.
Whoa! Spoiler alert!
Oh, well, they'll already know by the time this goes out, because you're streaming it tonight.
That's true.
And I picked the one that I thought was the cutest, basically, and had like a decent looking item. Like, I thought prawns. Yeah, right. I thought the bandit looked hot, basically. So that's why I picked him, because he had the best clothes. And I thought the prawns were going to be useful because it's food. I thought, oh, they'll heal me, right? It doesn't really tell you what they do. It just tells you something. And like, it tells you that the golden seed will give 1 extra charge to your flask. I don't know what the flask is. I don't know what the flask does in the game until I'm in the game. And I've never played a Souls game before, so I had no idea. And this is obviously all stuff that doesn't matter if you're a fan of the Souls genre. If you know the Souls genre, you're not going to have any issue. You'll go in knowing exactly what class you want to pick and how you want to play, because the stats are all the same. You've got the same, like, intelligence, arcane, all of that stuff. But I've slowly been moving my bandit towards being able to do loads of magic. So I've just been putting, every single time I level him up, I'm just intelligence, put it in the intelligence. He started with like 8 intelligence. I'm up to like 18 now, so he's not so stupid. You just have a ton
of wasted stat points.
Yeah, so much stats that I don't need, and you can't like reset halfway through. So you're right, I probably should have just started the game in hindsight, but I picked up some stuff I wanted to keep. But since then, I've played so much more, and like playing on stream with people was really helpful. They were able to give me tips. Like Tyler pointed me to points on the map I was meant to go to, which unlocked parts of the map. Like, it reveals the map that you're meant to have. I thought I just had this plain map, and that was the whole game. But it like reveals this wonderful, colorful map if you go to these specific points, and I had no idea.
That's
so
incredible.
I've been unlocking all of those. I switched from a dagger to a short sword, so I can actually get some kind of, distance between me and the enemy. And because I picked a bandit and my dexterity is so high, I can still swipe it super quick. So the good thing about the bandit class was, because his dexterity is so high and you swipe so quick, you can hit an enemy so many times before they can even get a chop in. So half the time you're just like bam, 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 bam on the right bumper, and they're dead before they've even been able to slice you once.
Nice.
Which is really nice, because you just go bam, 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 roll out of the way, let him do his attack, bam, 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 and then he's gone. It's really, really satisfying. But I don't really know when it clicked. It just kind of did. I was just like, I was getting in the rhythm of things. So I was like, I'm not constantly dying when I'm just approaching normal enemies, like the like the church dude or whatever. And Asobi filled me in on what the sacred tears and the golden seeds do and where I can find them, and level that up, and just like grinding and grinding and grinding to like kill all the animals to get their bones, so I can craft ammo for my bow and arrow, and doing all of that stuff, and then like abandoning the route, the strategy I was going with. Like, my strategy was like, I'm going to use bow and arrow all the time. I never use the fucking thing now, because I've got my staff and I use magic all the time. So I never used my bow and arrow. So all of that grinding to get the bones to have like a ranged weapon is unnecessary, because I have spells that do the thing for me now. So I don't know. I'm just so ingrained in the game now. I went back and played Horizon, and I was really struggling with it. I was just The controls were different because obviously they're very, very different controls between the
Yeah.
two. And I worry how you're going to get on with it because it's taken me a while to get used to it. But when your head's in there, you know exactly what to press and you kind of figure it all out. But just taking down, I think it was when I first took down the first boss that I was able to do, which was the like man beast in the cave near the starting area. There's like a cave with a bunch of wolves, and you go through, and then at the end there's like this big beastly dude that you can take down, and he gives you a talisman that you can wear, which makes you resistant to fire, which is really useful. And I took him down, and it was just it literally shout at the screen every time I defeat a boss. It's so satisfying to finally do it, and finally it just clicks with me. And now I get it. I get why people like it. Don't get me wrong, this is far from a 10 out of 10 game to me. There are still significant things that just piss me off with the game. The fact that I need people who understand these games to teach me stuff. Like Tyler even said, he played the game to begin with someone who already knew the game. And they taught him those things. It's like passed down from the elders to teach you how to play Souls games.
From kid generation to kid generation.
It's like, why is that necessary? The game should teach you these things. Yeah. And I still fundamentally disagree with anyone that says it's part of the mystery, it's part of its charm. I don't find it charming. I don't find it mysterious. I find it obnoxious. I find it alienating. It feels like people are just trying to ring fence this area of gaming just for them. Like, oh, you don't get it, it's too difficult for you, you're just a crap scrubby gamer, you don't know how to play this, so don't even try. And it really just feels like they're just trying to stop people from getting involved with it. And yet this is the best selling game of the year so far. It's far outsold Horizon. And I mean, granted, it's multi-platform, so that was to be expected.
Yeah, Horizon always had an uphill battle in that regard, right?
Yeah. But you know, this is the best-selling Souls game of all time, and I do worry how many people are picking this up based on the scores that they see, and they're just like, "What the fuck is this?" Because they have no idea how to play or what to do or where to go because the game does such a really bad job at signposting.
Steve, I'm so glad that you brought that up because it brings us to a beautiful question from the man who gave you life, Mr. Andy Radford, who wrote in and said, No Man's Sky, Fallout 76, Cyberpunk 2077. Does the hype from game studios and fueled by the media and influencers for some games mean that gamers should wait before buying? OpenCritic gives Elden Ring an average score of 96, with some critics rewarding it a 10 out of 10. At the user score on Metacritic, and the user score on Metacritic only gives it a 7.8. That is a big disparity between critics and players, and we should question why. Should game studios stop with the hyperbole and just let us wait for the release? Gameplay footage, basic story outline is fine, but they build huge anticipation only in some cases for us to be let down. When Sony pulls the game from its PlayStation Store, things must be bad. When a game becomes the butt of so many jokes and memes, things must be bad. So I think these are two separate questions, but I think they're both good and interesting questions. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I think you're right because one is clearly a good game that maybe the critics and the players disagree on, which is Elden Ring, and Cyberpunk. I think it was unanimously panned by everyone.
It wasn't
like,
by critics,
though.
Is the thing, right? Like that game,
because they only got the PC version
right.
to review. When we got access to like the PS4 and Xbox One versions in particular, I can remember that wasn't viewed favorably by anyone, and it was like this. It was this really kind of bait and switch that I think that critics felt that they were being pulled with. It was like, oh well, they're giving us a PC review code, but no one's got access to like a last gen copy, and they haven't even put any footage out about it. And this was meant to be released prior to the next gen consoles even being out.
Right.
And what a mess it was. That obviously is a great example of why I don't think anyone should pre-order video games. If you're not sure about it, don't pre-order a video game. There's no need to unless you are 100% sure you're interested in it, right? Because like Horizon Forbidden West, we'd seen so much of that game that I was 100% certain I was going to be interested in playing that video game. So I pre-ordered it, and I probably should have pre-ordered the limited edition and got all the bells and whistles and things that I would have loved.
Fucking wish I had the money for that statue.
Yeah.
I want it so bad.
But Elden Ring, we both waited until the release, like the date of the reviews coming out. And that was the point when I got swayed to pick it up. It was a 10 out of 10. And I was just like, there's no way we can't play this. People are going to want to hear us talk about it. And I want to know if this actually is Game of the Year. Like, does this even come close to what we're playing? And I haven't looked through the Metacritic, like player reviews. It seems to be the majority of the things people are panning it for are technical issues. And I think the difference between a critic and a player, I think critics can often look past the technical stuff and find a good game in there anyway. I look at Pokemon, for example. Pokemon Legends Arceus has so many issues with it. We noted them on Nintendo Noise. The draw distance, the textures, the frame rate. There's so many problems in that game. And yet it also got 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10. It was unanimously favored by critics.
I don't know if anyone gave it a 10, but it was definitely, someone did. But I feel like it was just, nobody didn't agree that it was between the 8 and 9 range at the very least, right? But yeah, I think to your point, right, there's also the caveat that when you think of, like, the Cyberpunk example is a good one. People who do game reviews, right, for outlets have advanced access, right, and they're getting a pre-release version of the game. So, like, when is the last time you bought a game that didn't have a day one patch? Nintendo games excluded, I guess, to some degree.
Well, even those do. Like, Pokemon Legends Arceus definitely did.
Yep.
And so did Brilliant Diamond, Shine, and Pearl.
Right. So, with that in mind, it's... If they like took every single like bug or glitch or thing that they experienced to the bank for their reviews, they would be reviewing a game, like a version of the game that is not what most players would experience on day one. So I feel like there's also a certain amount of like, you have to be like, okay, well, how much can I chalk this up to like pre-day one patch bugs versus like, this is something that's going to be pervasive throughout the entire experience of the game, right? Like, because like, you know I listened to reviews of like Horizon that talked about like experiencing glitches and stuff like that. And they were a lot more common for the people who reviewed it prior to day one than they have been for my experience with the game, right? Like, I've had 1 or 2 glitches that were, like, significant enough that I needed to reload a save. But that's, that's pretty negligible, right? If I was reviewing the game, I wouldn't be like, the game's buggy. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't have bugs, right? So it's like, I think that, like, there's a big...
Like a threshold, right? There's a threshold of, I feel like this could be patched.
Right.
Like, this is something that if I reported it to the developer, this would be patched. And you've got to remember, in the Cyberpunk situation, they'd told Sony that this stuff was going to be patched. And that was the reason Sony allowed it to be sold and pass through the approval process. Because Sony has their approval process where they test these games and they make sure that they're fit for sale on their platform. And CD Projekt Red had told Sony that this would be fixed. These issues would be fixed and it would be fine to go on sale. Obviously, it wasn't. It had gone on sale. And that's when Sony took the unprecedented choice of removing it from the store. And I don't think... I think that, again, comes down to, should you pre-order a game? I think that's really what this question comes down to. Is, should you pre-order a game or should you wait and listen to people? Yeah. Do you get wrapped up in the hype and the FOMO and the kind of issues that might arise with that? And I think the necessity to pre-order stuff is kind of going away as we've moved towards more of a digital age, because there's no like sparsity. It's not like back in the N64 days when there was a finite number of cartridges printed. You can just buy these games on a digital store if you really want to play them. Yeah. And often that's how people will buy them, so they can play them at midnight when it unlocks prior to a physical copy showing up.
Yeah, I
But
think
I will usually, for a game that I'm not 100% sold on, will wait for the reviews and wait for critics to see what they have to say.
definitely, yeah. I mean, I think when it comes to pre-orders, right? Like historically, my attitude has always been you should only pre-order a game if there's a reason for you to pre-order it, right? Like if there's like a bonus that you want to get, if there's a special edition that you want to take advantage of, like, you know, and like GameStop used to give out swag for pre-ordering games, and like I've pre-ordered a bunch of games because I was like, oh yeah, I want this like free toy or this free button or pin or what. Like I remember I got like Fire Emblem Three Houses had like a set of pins for each of the houses, and I got that as part of pre-ordering the game. You know,
I've just pre-ordered Kirby with a bunch of magnets, but then Kirby's an even better scenario because a demo came out as of the time of recording today, so you can go and play Kirby and try it for yourself and see what you think about it before you even buy it. And you know, I really miss the days when demos was like
commonplace.
That was a thing. It was commonplace. You used to pick up the official PlayStation magazine, and it would come with a disc, and you pop it in, and you try all these games out. And that was the way you found games because YouTube didn't exist.
Well, and the Xbox
Twitter didn't exist.
Arcade had a demo feature for a while too. That was really useful. So yeah, I mean, I think generally speaking, yeah, like gamers should probably wait before buying. That's why like critics and reviewers exist. But I think like tying that to the next question about like why is there a disparity? I think that's like I think that's a not a good line to draw personally, because I think the idea that like there's going to be a disparity between what critics think and what audiences think is pretty much always true, right? Like when you review games or when you review art for a job or for a living or whatever, right? Like it changes the way you think about a piece of art. And I don't mean that to be like pretentious, right? But like to Steve's earlier point of being like, you might think about the game differently because it's like, well, I can look past this or that because of X or Y, right? And like when it comes to the idea of this game getting a 10 out of 10, you know, I think the reviewers who reviewed it do think it's a 10 out of 10, right? And like if you're a fan of the Souls franchise, then like that's great. But I think that this game had hype surrounding it and like a marketing push surrounding it that is trying to push it more into the mainstream and have it be like less of a niche thing. And I think as a result, you have a lot of people like me and Steve even, right, who are like kind of like, oh, I feel like I'm on the outside of this. I want to try it. I want to try to get into it. And like I think that you have a lot of people who are like not into Souls games historically coming into it for the first time. That's also going to make the audience score skew lower because there's going to be a lot of people who spend, you know, $60 or $70 on this game and don't like it or have like a technical issue with it or something, and then are like, this game's fucking broken, 1 out of 5, right? And like that, like a critic would never do that. A critic would never say a game's a 1 out of 5.
They've also got they've also got an open line of communication with the developer and the publisher. They can say, I've experienced this issue. Is this something that you've had reported? Is there a way I can work around it? Is this going to be fixed in a day one patch? What's going on? But I've also checked the reviews for Elden Ring on Steam, because Steam only allows you to review when you've played the game.
Right.
You can't review a game you haven't played. The Steam overall reviews are very positive. The majority of people love this game on Steam, and it makes me wonder, is it victim of review bombing again? Because we've obviously seen that happening with most major releases. People just go on Metacritic, they'll give it a bad score just to review bomb the game for no real good reason. And you read through some of the reviews on there, it's just like, I don't get why this is a 10 out of 10. This is just a overrated game, but most overrated game of 2022. From Software make awful games, and it's just like none of these reviews of people who've actually played the game,
or even if they have a bias, right? Like they have a clear bias, and you could argue that game reviewers who love Souls games and gave Elden Ring a 10 out of 10 have a bias too, I guess. But I think that's the whole, like, that's what reviews are for, right? Like, that's why I get really frustrated when people are like, this game isn't a 10 out of 10. Like, how could IGN give this a 10, right? Or something like that. And it's like, well, it's a 10 to that reviewer. That doesn't mean that everybody at a given publication thinks that it's a 10, right? Like, there are games that we reviewed together that I would say are a 10 that you wouldn't. And that's fine, right? Like, it might be a 10 for me and not for you because we're different people with different tastes. And, like, I think the important thing to do with reviews, right, and to take it back to the question, right, like, wait before buying. If there's something that, like, you know that you're going to like I knew I was going to like Horizon, right? I knew I was going to buy Horizon day one and that there was no universe I wasn't going to check that game out. And
But did you do that with the first one? Or was it just with the sequel?
I had followed the development of the first one for years, so I was kind of like in on it anyway, and that could be an example of someone buying into hype and being like, hey, I'm excited for this and I'm going to get it because I want to check it out.
Yeah, because that could have turned out to be a disaster.
Could have been, right. And I've had that happen before where I bought games too early or like my friends were playing a game and I bought it even though I knew I didn't like the kind of game that it was and it didn't click for me, and that's fine. But
we both bought into the Cyberpunk hype.
I mean, I finished that game though, so and I get.
Yeah, I think you admit though that it's not great.
No,
it's really not.
I wouldn't say it's great. No, not at all. And I definitely bought into the hype on that. But hey, right. That said, I think that's why reviews and criticism exists and is vibrant. Is that like the reason you listen to this podcast theoretically, right? In my mind, tell me if it's different. Is either you think we're funny and you like our personalities, or your tastes align with ours, right? We're not that funny. Or your tastes align with ours and you're like, well, I like the kind of games that Pete likes, or I like the kind of games that Steve likes. So when they recommend this game, that makes me think I should try it because, you know, like Pete recommended Ghost and it's one of my favorite games now. So maybe I'll like Horizon 2, or like, oh, like, I was going to get 12 minutes, and both Pete and Steve said they didn't like it, and they like the kind of games that I like, so maybe I shouldn't waste my time, right? Like,
oh man, that story in that game, just
terrible.
It really upsets me because that was such a good concept.
But that's the whole thing, right? Like, I think that's why shows like ours exist. So, like, if you're a person with, like, a limited budget and you're on the fence about something or whatever, right? If you just don't want to waste your money on a game you're not going to like, yeah, you should seek out reviews and find reviewers who have taste that is similar to yours and, you know, that have the same kind of, that like the same kind of games that you vibe with. And that's going to be the way that you figure it out, right? Because, yeah, like maybe all the folks at major outlets who reviewed this game gave it a 10 out of 10, but there are plenty of people. We had an episode last week about how we didn't like it, right? Or how theoretically Steve didn't like it and I don't like this kind of game, right? And that's valid.
And can you imagine how many people may have bought the game or tried the game, you know, did the Steam 2-hour thing, tried it for 2 hours, decided they didn't like it, and then went and left a bad review about it? Or maybe it literally was just a case that performance was too bad for them, because that is a valid criticism of this game. It runs between 40 and 60 frames per second in frame rate mode, which is just totally unacceptable. And if people can't get over that, then fine. If they can't, if that is like the kind of thing they'll die on, then fine.
Yeah.
But I think personally, I can look past that. Especially, I'm fortunate enough to be playing on a variable refresh rate display, so all of those issues are alleviated for me. But that seems to be one of the reasons why these reviews are being left. Bad performance, review bombing, and just don't like From Software in general. And it sucks because you look at it on Steam and it gets positive reviews.
Yep. And
but
go ahead.
The hype around this game, I very much was just like, personally, I was put off by all of the hype.
I was
Everyone
too.
was talking about it. Everyone was talking about it as like the best thing since sliced bread. I was just like, I don't care about this nonsense story by the Game of Thrones writer. I just don't care about any of that. And I was just like, oh, it just looks like another Souls game. And then you play it, and it's very different from that. I didn't buy into any of it because I wasn't interested in the game. But I can imagine if you were a Souls fan, you would buy into all that. You'd be like, wow, it's from the Game of Thrones writer, and it's like it's an open world, it's a new twist on Souls.
But that's the thing, right? I don't think that's bad. Like, if you're already that fan, that hype was for you, you know, and like,
Yeah, the hype was for you, but then there are situations, which is what my dad was talking about, where they're doing all this hype, and it is like a bait and switch situation where
yeah,
the game just doesn't live up to it.
right. But I also think that the idea that like that I don't know the idea that that is like an endemic problem rather than like you can point to examples is something that I don't necessarily agree with, because think about how many games have a hype cycle and then are really good, right? Like I think of like Cuphead lived up to the hype. We saw that game for like fucking forever, and it came out and it slapped, right? And like that happens too. So
Yeah,
like
there are a lot of examples I think there's probably more examples where marketing is they've overspent on marketing to cover up and some bad games, right? I think of Battlefield 2042 last year, for
sure.
example, and they just blame the fact that it came out alongside Halo a lot of the time. It's just like, no, everyone just, I think, unanimously agrees it wasn't that great
It
of a
wasn't that
game,
great, right?
and it was a real miss for them.
And that's the thing, though, right? Is like it's a marketing arm's job to market the game. So, like,
Yeah.
the idea of like, should like studios stop hyping up their games? No, like I think we as consumers need to be more savvy about hype trailers, and that like hype is fun, right? Like we love Nintendo Directs, we love E3, we love watching these events and reacting and being like, this looks so cool and this is, but you have to take that with a grain of salt, right? Like you have to have a little bit of responsibility as a consumer to be like, I am going to wait for the reviews, or I am going to seek out the opinion of reviewers that I trust, and this and that, right? Because like not every game is for everybody, you know? Like I think about like, again, we had a whole debate about Horizon a few weeks ago, right? And like how the vast critical response is positive. There's a lot of people that it just doesn't click with, and like that's fine, but you need to know that about yourself. And I don't really, you know, it's like the idea that it's like, we'll stop marketing and talking about game releases, you know, it's like that's never going to happen.
I also think people have got to shift away from scores, right? And like I know outlets like Polygon and Kotaku have stopped scoring their games because it is so easy for people to just use it as ammunition at one another, and you see it on Twitter all the time.
Yeah.
Like, how is this game a 10, but that game's a 9? You know, you look at Horizon Forbidden West, it gets 88 on Metacritic, whereas Forza Horizon 5 gets 95. You compare those two games together, yeah, the scores seem like, oh, maybe something's not adding up here, but you've got to look at it in the context of Forza's 95 for a racing game. Is one of the best racing games of all time.
Yeah, and the person
and
who
that's why it gets
reviewed
that
it
score.
loves racing games, right? So like they're gonna grade it on a curve that you might not. Like that's fine. Like I don't think that's inherently problematic. And I do want to pull out another thing, right? Where you're the example that you gave here, Andy, of like it's a 96 on Metacritic, but OpenCritic, I guess, and then Metacritic score has it on a 7.8. On Breath of the Wild, which is like the most highly reviewed game on Metacritic, right? Has a 97. Its user score is 8.7. Like that's a whole number grade lower. So I think that's also the thing, is you have to grade user scores on a curve, because there's always going to be some people who are like, I don't like this for an arbitrary reason and I'm going to review bomb it, right? So like,
yeah.
And
it reminds me of the
it
Amazon
is.
reviews, when you go through the Amazon reviews and it's like, arrived damaged, or
1 star.
packaging was bad.
It's like that's
yeah,
not
like,
useful.
Come on.
That's not useful, right? Like that's not a useful review. That sucks for you, but return it and get another one, right? Like you're not actually providing value by being like, oh, I had a bad experience, 1 star. It's like, okay, like, and you know what I mean? So that's, I think that it's like you do need to just think. You know, you need to like be the one who mitigates your own hype and know when to bite and when not to bite. Because like there are times,
and that's easier said than done.
It is,
like,
and you're gonna get it wrong.
Time on stuff. Like I bit on Pokemon Legends Arceus because I thought this is finally going to be the Pokemon game that's for me. Even though I never have really liked a Pokemon game, and I just don't get why I did it. But then you take gambles, and they do pay off. Like Metroid Dread for us was our game of the year.
We both thought we wouldn't like it.
neither of us thought we were into Metroidvanias. And I know you still have this thing of, well, do I just like Metroid or do I like Metroidvanias? You're not quite sure. I think that's an interesting thing for you to explore personally.
I need
on some
to. I
streams
know.
or whatever. But it is a gamble, and it depends. I think as a consumer, can you gamble with £40 to £70 or dollars, or can you not afford to do that? And if you can't afford to take that gamble and take that risk, then wait for the reviews and look at reviewers that you know and you love and you know that your tastes align with them.
Or something else to keep in mind, right, is like if you're not somebody who makes content, you don't need to buy games when they're brand new. Play it later. Yeah. Play it later when it's better and it's patched and it's cheaper and you can have the definitively better experience for a better price. You know, like there's nothing wrong with that. Like I think about like how much I loved Guardians of the Galaxy last year, right? And like it's undersold. Now it's going to be on Game Pass. If you missed it, you should go fucking play it. It was great. And you can play it now and have a better technical experience than I had, right? But like that's why I do this. I do this to tell you it's worth playing. It's worth your money, right? Like if you're buying on a limited budget, I feel confident that this is worth your time, you know? Or maybe not even money, right? Your time. That's the other thing is for a lot of people, you might have expendable income, but not have expendable minutes, right? And like that's also a valid perspective. So I think that's why you've again, you've got to find the people that can give you opinions that are going to be valuable and allow you to make an informed choice as a consumer. So speaking of which, I didn't have to make an informed choice as a consumer for Elden Ring because the community wanted me to play it so much, they effectively bought me a copy. Asobi was watching you stream it this morning and was like, oh, what do I got to do to get Pete to play this game? Here's like 5 subs or whatever. And I was like, all right, hey, yeah, fuck it. All right, okay. So thanks for the copy of Elden Ring, everybody.
I'd already told you to buy a copy of this game anyway.
You did.
Like last week. I was like, just buy a copy and try it and see what you think. And you did do it.
I was like, nah.
I'm glad that you finally did.
Well, if the people want me to do it that much, it's like, I'll do it then. Right? Like, because it's, like, I want to try it, but, like, did I want to try it enough to spend $60 when I'm already, like, focusing on Horizon? Like, not really, and, like, it is what it is. But the fact that everybody's like, we want to see you stream it, like, play, like, let us see you do the first hour and everything. It's like, all right, that's enough for me, right? Like, if there's ever a game that y'all really want me to play or really want me to stream or whatever, like, I'm happy to do it, so, yeah, so I'm gonna give it a go. I don't know. I'm cautiously excited. I feel like I could equally see me getting into it or being like, nah, still not for me. I was right.
You got to do what I did, right? And I really want you to commit to it of 10 hours and beating that first mainline boss.
I can do that.
And if
I think especially if I'm
that,
streaming it, then I can do it.
Yeah. If you hate it after that, you will never like it.
Okay, so here's my thing. Here's the other thing. Pixelpar said on the stream today that he'll stop bothering me about The Witcher 3 if I play this game. So that's another thing in its favor for me trying it.
That's a win for you, yeah.
And I think if I give this the 10 hours and I beat the first boss and I still don't like it, everybody needs to leave me alone about Souls games forever.
Yes,
we need to just accept that they're just not for me, and that's okay.
Until the next one comes out, and
then I'll get baited into this shit 100% all over again.
Yeah.
But at least until then, moratorium on Souls conversation.
Well, I mean, before we do that though, you were looking into classes.
I was.
And I didn't do any of this research, and I want to know where you're landing and why you're landing there.
So I watched. Let me find the name of the YouTuber so I can give them a shout, because I watched like a 30-minute video about this, and it was really, really useful and informative.
One of them was a samurai, right?
Yes. Okay, I
was talking to Ray, who's a very big Soulsy guy, and he said he would not recommend the samurai because he picked it and thinks it's a really hard class.
Interesting. Well, the YouTube channel was Blood Ronin for Life. It's like the number 4. And he had
Hey everyone.
Oh my god, you just have heard this person's voice like 3 times while I tried to open it up and see it. So they did like a whole like 25-minute video breaking down all the classes and kind of explaining the pros and cons. and then they had a follow-up video that was like about some of the other like stat changes and stuff. So I watched all of that to try to get a sense for it, and I am between the warrior or the samurai class. That's kind of been what I was thinking, because that's just usually like the play style that I prefer, or like at least like it's the kind of character that I like better. Like I don't like in a RPG setting, I tend to gravitate towards dexterity based characters rather than like strength or magic. Magic's usually like a close second, but like
I think you're really gonna want magic, if I'm honest. It makes the game so much easier.
Yeah, but you can spec magic without being a magic based class, like you are.
Yeah,
and I am.
Yeah.
I'm planning on getting summons and stuff like that, but I don't want to be a full mage.
Oh, you'll get summons.
I'll be
anyway.
Squishy, so that just like doesn't seem like the move. For
You
me.
won't be squishy. Your health it's separate from strength and things like that.
Yeah, but it's tied to endurance.
No, that's your stamina.
Okay, what's the one that's tied to health?
I have no idea, but I think you just get more every single time you level up.
No, I don't think. I think you're definitely wrong. Ciara in the Discord was telling me that mages are inherently more squishy, like casting characters. And also the video that I watched was a 30 thing, and it was like the casting clashes are great if you like magic, but you're squishy and you're vulnerable. And there are some enemies that resist magic, so then you have to do melee stuff, and you're going to be squishy as fuck.
Yeah, and there's also some enemies that will not die unless you use magic.
So, yeah. So my plan is to be a dexterity-based class, and
Which is what I picked. I picked the bandit. He was dexterity-based.
He's just the worst one of the three, apparently.
Yeah.
So, and
dumbass.
I was interested in the warrior because I like dual wielding. Like, that's just the thing I've always thought was cool ever since I saw, what was it, Two Towers, I think, with Lord of the Rings, and Legolas has the two blades when they're going through the orc settlement in like the caves and everything. I always thought that was really cool. And then again, like I generally like archers or characters that are like, speedy and like are about getting in lots of quick hits rather than like big, slow, two-handed weapon type warrior guys or like full plate armor. Like I usually prefer like the more like Link style fighter where it's like you got like a sword and a buckler, or two swords, or like you've got a long like a katana and like the bow. I was like, oh, like that sounds really cool. That seems like my jam. I
like that. I think the thing I didn't realize is whether you have a light load, medium load, or heavy load really changes the way your character moves in these games. I'm not used to it. Usually in something like an Elder Scrolls, right, or a Diablo, you can carry as much as you want, wear as much as you want, and then you reach a point and you're over encumbered and you move slowly and you can't fast travel. In this, if you're light, you can like roll quicker, run quicker, move quicker. Medium, it's slightly slower. You get to a heavy build, you can't roll at all. You can't dodge.
You can if you
so you're like
build it.
Stomping about the place.
Because that was the thing in the video. He was talking about like slow rolling and that like there's a way to combat that by investing in the right stats, which is interesting. But yeah, like that just doesn't sound appealing to me. Like I don't want to be like heavy and slow. And I think playing like a pure caster, I feel like I'm going to be too squishy for my first Souls game. So the fact that I already like dex-based characters, and it also seems like it's the best middle of the road option. That's kind of like where I'm at. The other one I was thinking was, what is it? It's the other strength-based class. It's like, it's not the hero. It's like the marauder or something like that. I forget.
No idea. I don't know what they're called.
That one
we did have a YouTube comment which said the confessor, and focus on leveling up endurance, health, intelligence, dex, and faith, which was from John Bodenheimer on the last episode, which was a recommendation for me as like a good starter class to go with.
The faith-based stuff, I just, again, like it was like, it's a casting focus, and like I think I want to be more like all around a little bit. So I was kind of thinking that the other strength-based class might be good because it has really good like across the board base stats. So like you can kind of like
two-handed though. Like, do you not want a buckler?
I don't like two-handed weapons. Yeah, I would rather have a sword and a shield or two swords.
Mm-hmm. I think you'll want a shield, personally. You'll want to be able to parry, and you'll want to be able to block light attacks.
Can I do that as a
straight away.
samurai?
I think you have to hold 2 buttons to hold it upright. You have to hold 2 shoulder buttons in order to be able to block.
With the sword?
Rather than just holding left trigger. Yeah.
Oh. I don't know about that.
It tells you at the beginning, but I've never played with a two-handed weapon. It's like, to do two-handed weapons, you have to press 2 shoulder buttons to dual wield it at once.
Apparently, you can dual wield you can dual wield katanas eventually if you're the samurai, which is really cool.
I just picked up what are they called? The knuckle things with the like big Wolverine claws on.
I have no
I just
idea
got a
what
pair
those
of
are
those.
called, but yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
They're so fucking cool. Problem is, you've got to get real close quarters with all of those. Like katanas and things like that. You are up close.
But I also
you're
get a
in
bow.
danger.
You get a bow.
You do get a bow.
You
Yeah,
get a long
I
bow.
think everyone gets a bow, don't they?
No, you don't start with one. You start with one as a
Okay.
samurai.
Is it a bow or crossbow?
It's a
Long bow.
long bow.
Yeah, I got a bow as a bandit. I've since been that off for a crossbow. I realised I don't really like the crossbow, so I went back to the normal bow. Now I don't use either because I just use magic.
So, okay, yeah. So, I guess it is a two-handed weapon. Maybe I don't want that then. I hate this. Like,
Right, well, everyone in the stream's going to help as well.
I hate how torn I feel.
And you can say what you want.
Yeah. I'll let them help me out.
I think you've got a good idea of where you want to go, though. You want dexterity focused, so you can have quick attacks and quick rolls. And you gotta forget about what you start with, because you're gonna bend that off fairly soon.
Okay, no, you do have a shield as a samurai, and you can.
Oh, it's one-handed. Maybe that's
You
a
can
good
either
choice, then.
two-hand the blade or do sword and shield.
Right. Okay. So the two-hand is with when you have to hold the 2 buttons. Then
Yeah, but they
it'll
have
tell you how to do it.
they have an unsheath ability that apparently is really good too. So, I don't know. I don't know what to do. You know, I don't know.
Go with your gut. If you like samurai, go with samurai.
It sounds cool. It sounds like the one I think I want to go with. But I'm open to warrior. Also sounds appealing. So I think I'm leaning towards one.
It's also just like the stats you start with and the equipment you start with. If you start playing like I did and realize that's not my play style, you can change it.
They also have
just gonna cost
basically
you.
the same stats. They have like a 1-point differential. And I think the
It's
samurai
really just the equipment then.
Yeah, and I think the samurai has less investment in the casting. Like
less arcane or something.
yeah, and those are useless in as like that kind of character. So, because like you can up your intelligence, which lets you do the summons and everything, and you can do like the base magic that you need to do to make the game easier.
Yeah, that's why I did the intelligence. So I've got like 3 wolves I can spawn at any time.
Yeah,
and I can like shoot things out of my staff.
So how does that work? Is there like a skill tree or something, or?
No, you pick them up. There's things around the world when you attack them and kill them, they'll drop what's called ashes. You pick the ashes up, and it's a skill that either can be attributed to like a summons. It's like a summons skill, and you equip it, or you, I guess, like bless your weapon with it, and it's like a special ability for your weapon. So I've got one on my shield that when I successfully parry, it knocks them flying backwards.
Oh, that's cool. So now, with something like that, if you got a better shield, could you take that ability off and respec it?
You can. You
so
can.
Can you have like a library of abilities then? Like
you have a chest that you can put them in.
Cool.
All these ashes you can put them in.
All right.
And you can swap them at the campfires. You go there, and you click like change ashes of whatever it's called, ashes of war, I think they're called. And you can go to an anvil or a blacksmith, and he will be able to. He's the one that can change them on your weapon for you.
Cool. All right. Well, I guess we'll see how it goes. It's like we are just a few minutes away from this stream now, so we'll wrap it up there for today. If you are hearing this by now, my stream of my first few hours of the game have already gone live, so I'm sure you can go still catch the VOD on Twitch. But of course, if you're a Patreon supporter at the blue coin level or above, you'll be able to get access to that VOD over on our YouTube channel. So if you can't catch it live, or if you already missed it, you'll still be able to check in and see how I did, and I'm sure we'll talk about it next week. So I guess I'll just say wish me luck, because we'll see what happens. I've
had Asobi messaging me, and he wants to do some bubbly bets on you doing certain things in the game. So I'm very much looking forward to this stream.
Oh my god! Why did we ever make that a thing? Oh boy! All right, well. We'll see how it goes, everybody. So thank you for tuning in for another episode of the FlipScreen Games podcast. If you are enjoying Elden Ring, or if you're not enjoying Elden Ring, make sure you write in for next week's show and let us know what you're thinking. What classes are you playing? How are you getting on with the game? All that stuff. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this or any other thing that's coming up in the world of gaming. So, definitely write into the show for next week and let us know what you're thinking about this, or what other games you're playing instead of Elden Ring. Maybe that's worth talking about too. Who knows? So you write in and let us know. So, of course, if you want to connect with us in all the ways that you can, head over to flipscreen.games. That's our website. We've got links to our Discord. We've got our email address. We've got our Twitch channel. We've got a bunch of other places you can go support us, including Patreon. So go check all that stuff out. However you choose to interact, we greatly appreciate that you chose to spend your time with us here this fine week. And we hope to catch you next week for another episode of the FlipScreen Games podcast. Take care, everybody.